North Ipswich Reserve. We're with you for a fantastic round 10 clash between the Central Queensland Capras and the Luxury Paints Ipswich Jets. Great to have you with us on Phoenix Radio, phoenix.com.au. Smith somehow right down the eastern touchline, 12-4 the score. Well, the first attacking opportunity the Capras had.
Hello and welcome to our last episode of After the 80 for 2016. I'm Ben Wilmot and joining me as always is Anthony Bomber Breeze. Welcome, Bomber. Can you believe it's our last episode of the year?
No, it was only yesterday that we were talking about the beginning of the season, who was going to win the season, but we've had a full-on season in the IRL through the Intrust, and then it obviously concluded on the weekend with that brilliant grand final. So.
That's it. Well, it's kept us busy all year, and it's a good way to finish off the year with that grand final down in Sydney. Go and watch it along. Well, also joining us on the panel this week is Byron Whitehead, the Treasurer for the Ipswich Rugby League. And Byron, you were there with us on the weekend. It was a great experience to be part of.
Oh, you wouldn't miss it for the world, would you, if you're a Rugby League fan?
That's
Tremendous
it.
Grand Final in Sydney.
Well, we were one of about 90,000 Cronulla Sharks fans down there on Grand Final Day, and it kicked off with the under-20s Grand Final between the Panthers and the Roosters, and the Panthers went into half-time with a commanding lead, but we all know that the game is of two halves, and the second half of this game was one great comeback story for the Roosters, keeping the Panthers scoreless in the second half and taking the trophy with a 30-28 win. Bomber, at half-time, did you expect the Roosters to come back against the minor premiers the way they did?
Well, one answer, no, because
I think we went for a walk at that stage.
they were minor premiers for a reason. Obviously, they were 5 points clear. They had a points differential of plus 468. They were playing the fifth team, the Roosters, who only had a points differential of 68. So, and like you said, at half time it was 28-6. They were doing it. They were in cruise control, and like I said, the score could have been 50 or 60 there. Like I said, we went for a walk, and then every couple of minutes in the second half there, as you can see by some of the highlights here, they. I don't know whether it was a gridiron game or not there, whether they brought out their attacking team in the second half, the Roosters, but they just seemed to get on a roll in the second half and scored try after try. And
what did you think of what would have been the halftime message to come back from that kind of scoreline? You know you're down. You would have thought that they'd have a hard time trying to find their way back into the game. It was almost a matter of what the scoreline was going to be at the end.
Well, obviously the Roosters coach there, obviously he wouldn't have told them that they were no chance. He would have said we're still in the game there. You're 22 points behind, which is only 4 converted tries, and that's what they scored, 4 converted tries to win it. So, but obviously just put a bit of belief in it. Get out early, get an early try. If you get an early try, you roll on in these games, and obviously by doing that they did roll on, and unbelievable. That's Roger Tuivasa-Sheck's brother, so Johnny Tuivasa-Sheck.
Showing a good turn of speed as well from the younger brother.
Yeah. So, but like I said, Biggin, you're the best team all year, but this was to even it up right near the end there, but obviously by missing the ball, not going dead there, and then the Panthers had to throw everything at them, and unfortunately it wasn't good enough in the end.
That's a coach killer there, not finding the dead ball line with that kick to try and level the score. If you're going to miss it, you got to kick it dead.
Well, that's it. That's tactics are tactics are tactics. These are two clubs Phil Gould's had a big finger in, and something like that, he'd have been pulling his hair out.
Well, it started off the day on a good foot with an upset win for the underdogs, and would set the tone for later in the day as well. Well, now on to the second game of the day, which we saw the complete whitewash of the Burleigh Bears by the Illawarra Cutters, 54-12 in the NRL Intrust State Championship. Bomber, I thought the Bears would have put up a better fight than that on Grand Final Day after the last 2 times this has been played between New South Wales and Queensland. Queensland's come away as the winner. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what to make of this game. I think obviously Burleigh partied a little bit too hard there, and in end of the week there, but they just looked very slow. Whether they were slow or the Cutters were very fast, I don't know, but they just seemed to run right through there. Every 6 tackles there, they're making 60, 70 metres, and then every second or third ruck they were just scoring. So it's probably a little bit disappointing for Burleigh, a little bit disappointing for the QRL with the Queensland side there, because they obviously bill it as a Queensland New South Wales type game. So is it hard to get remotivated again once you've you finish the Intrust Super Cup season, 20 plus weeks or something like that to reach the grand final, get the win there. Is it a bit hard trying to refocus again a week later?
Well, I suppose it is. At the beginning of the season there, you're not thinking of winning the Intrust, interstate Intrust thing. You want to win your Queensland version of it, which is a big thing there. You put all the effort into that, and obviously when you do win, you're on a high. You want to celebrate and all that there. The training gets a little bit relaxed there, but it's whether you want to win this thing or not. Obviously the Jets did last week. I think they celebrated for 2 days and got back into it, and I think they celebrated again after they won. So there are times that you can celebrate whether you take this game seriously or not.
For a player signing point of view, this is the first time a lot of Sydney clubs have a chance to view these kind of players from Queensland, though. For a player's personal development, this would have been a great chance for them to push for a contract in the NRL.
Well, obviously the talent scouts are there on grand final day, and all the New South Wales clubs get to see probably Burleigh for the first time, and they get to. There might have been a couple of fringe players that they have looked at throughout the season there, and said, "Oh, well, let's see how he goes on the big stage." So some of them may have done themselves a little bit of a harm. So, but time will tell.
Yep. Byron, it just comes down to the NRL experience that the Cutters did have. We had Adam Quinlan and a number of others in the Cutters side that feeder side for St George Illawarra, the Dragons. Did it just come down to the different speed that they could put into the game?
It certainly appeared that way, yeah. I mean, Burleigh just seems flat-footed. They just weren't moving up. They were slow in all the plays. The defensive line was always square. It never... It just... But unfortunately, I mean, they were on one hell of a high last week, and this weekend, unfortunately, no. But as you say, did they put too much in winning the Queensland Intrust Super Cup and left nothing in the tank, basically for last weekend?
It's always hard to amp the speed up after 3 days of celebrating after the grand final win. Well, still ahead, we're going to do a full review of the NRL Grand Final of 2016 and also a recap of the IRL and QRL Grand Finals from the last 2 weeks. That and more coming up on the Grand Final edition of After the 80. Welcome back to the grand final edition of After the 80, and Sunday night saw the end to the NRL season of 2016 with the Cronulla Sharks taking on the Melbourne Storm. The Sharks were too good on the night, taking home their first premiership win, 14-12. Bomber, you, Byron and I all flew down for the grand final, and you predicted the Cronulla Sharks to win the grand final. Were you happy to see your predictions come true?
Yeah, well, I always thought that they would win. I thought they'd be a little bit fast and all that, but they're always going to do it tough because, like Melbourne do, they strangle teams to death there, and they've got the experienced players. When you've got a Cameron Smith and a Cooper Cronk and them in the side there, they direct them around and all that. So, yeah, so I thought the Sharks would win. Got a little bit nerve-wracking near the end for them.
Well, this almost try here was almost opened up the try scoring for the night with Luke Lewis coming half an inch to the try line and almost off the back of your your Clive Churchill prediction in James Maloney there. But it was Ben Barber getting a fantastic inside pass off the scrum straight through the middle and started the night off on a good foot. There was some big hits as well, as we just saw there, the head clash, which...
well, like I said, the Barber try, that's not a try you see in a grand final normally. Normally you don't, and they've never done that all year. They said they've waited to do that try there. They've kept it away from other players, not to tell them that it's going to happen, and work to perfection. Do
you need some of those out-of-the-box tactics on grand final day to really mix it up?
Oh, well, obviously you do. Like the days of just packing the two props and the second rows in there have gone. You'll see the forwards out there, and as you can see, Chase Blair, their centre, was in there. He come across to take Gallen, and you've got the fullback who's come from the second row to score the try. So, sensational move.
Yeah, and showed a great burst of speed to get through that gap as well. It was another one of the big moments with McLean, I think it is, coming through there and pushing Michael Ennis, the niggler himself. We always knew he was going to throw throw a few moments in there, testing times for the Melbourne Storm. But it was a great display of defence from both sides as well. Byron, were you surprised to see Melbourne have such a hard time finding the try line up until this point where we saw them crash over 10 minutes into the second half?
I was, but I knew Cronulla were going to come out hard and fast and throw everything they had. But I'll be honest, I still believe Melbourne were going to turn that game around.
Well, they've got a lot of Queensland origin players in there, and right up until the end you were still waiting for one of those Maroons tries in the last few minutes with the length of the field try or something like that. Always looked like the game was ready to be broken open.
Well, I was convinced we were going to go to extra time. I really believe Melbourne were going to get those 2 points. But unfortunately they didn't.
Well, if it was Brisbane and North Queensland, we definitely would have been going to a golden point at the end of that. But it was a very Origin-like performance from both teams, wasn't it?
Yeah, like it was a grinding affair there. Like some people say, oh, it wasn't a fantastic game to watch because they want to see tries. But for the purists that like rugby league, they were completing at over 80%, 81 and 89% at one stage. So that means they were getting to the fifth tackle all the time and kicking the ball and all that there. And I thought it was a fantastic game myself. So.
Well, some great individual performances from both teams as well. Cameron Smith in a losing team making 73 tackles, almost a tackle per minute in the final game of the year was an outstanding effort from one of the veterans of the game. But there were some great performances from the Cronulla Sharks as well, obviously, with I think Jack Bird playing with a pretty much one arm for the whole game was an exceptional display.
Yeah, well, we mentioned it several times there when he got hurt, and he just kept playing. He even got into the niggle and pushing with the one arm, and I believe yesterday he's got ruptured tendons in his elbow. So for him to play the whole second half
and be one of their outstanding players.
Yeah, that's mean. He would have been high up on there for the Clive Churchill medal. I thought Andrew Fafita deserved the Clive Churchill medal myself.
As we see the match-winning try.
For the match-winning try, obviously, there. But he had 23 runs. He made 35 tackles. He was the only player on the field to make over 200 metres. Whether he was denied it because of his off-field discretions there. But Luke Lewis, you can't deny Luke Lewis had a brilliant game. If they awarded it at half-time, like I said, James Maloney probably would have got it. So, and if Melbourne would have won, Cameron Smith probably would have won it by the length of the straight from Melbourne.
Well, we always expected Melbourne's big men to step up for the grand final, but I think a lot of the talk after the game was the quietness of Cooper Cronk. Hardly noticed him on the field that game.
No, he just he might have been on the bench really for all the effect he had. Out of the big men that were there, Fafita, Garland, Ennis, they made more impact than the Melbourne boys.
It was a big moment for the playmakers from Cronulla as well, with Chad Townsend and James Maloney, both in a premiership winning team, which was fantastic to see. Probably two of the buys of the season. Yeah, well, it's good to see Chad Townsend. He was in the semi-final there. He was pulled off at half-time there, so and obviously he wasn't happy about it, but Flanagan spoke to him and said obviously we needed to go in a different direction to win the game, and it obviously worked. And then he's come out in the grand final and done his job. And James Maloney, obviously the Roosters didn't want him, so they punted him, and he's probably been one of the form players of the year. We had a great Origin series as well, so. Well, the work of Chambers here was fantastic, almost finding Cooper Cronk there, which would have been a sure try and probably would have injected Cronk into the game. As we see the final 3 seconds of hectic play, we were sitting right behind this try line here, and we thought they were going to score when they went over to the right-hand side, and then when they shifted it back to the left. Yeah, Sharks fans were getting nervous here. Tackle him. 4-on-1. One more tackle there, and as soon as that tackle went up... Should Korobidi have put a ball up, a kick-in goal or something like that? It's easy to say in hindsight there, but the Cronulla fans were happy that he didn't. They were just tackled, and that was it. So. There was tears of joy in the stands. Oh yeah, obviously Darren Botcher come down with us, a good sponsor of the IRL there. He was absolutely jubilant. He might have let off a few tears as well, but when you've been supporting a team for 40 odd years, when you win your first one. It was a big moment for Paul Gallen, second last year of his NRL dynasty that he's constructed over the years as well. Finally getting a premiership win and clearly deserved it of it.
Oh, well, that's what Gallen needed. Like, he's been a champion of our game there, whether you like him or you
He's
don't like him. His
Yep.
figure, his stats are above nearly any forward of the last 10 years. He takes more hit-ups, makes more yards there. Obviously, north of the border, the Queenslanders don't really like him,
Yep.
but south of the border, they love him. So, and obviously to lead the Sharks to the first final there, he'll go down as one of the Sharks' immortals, I'd say.
Well, it was the first time I found myself cheering on Paul Gallen and Michael Ennis lifting a trophy, usually on the other side in the Origin fixtures. But definitely a big moment for all the fans that were there as well. I think that of the 100,000 people in ANZ Stadium, there was 90,000 Sharks fans and a few dots of purple amongst them. It was a big moment for them to stick around for as well.
I mean, Bomber and I have been down to about the last 4 or 5 grand finals in a row. I've never seen a team have that much following in that stadium. 3/4 of the stadium would have been Sharkies fans, and it just erupted at full time. You know, everybody around us. I know there was a couple of Melbourne fans there. I noticed they got out quick.
Yep.
And the first couple of trains out of the station, I can tell you, were empty because they were full of Melbourne fans.
Well, the commentary after the game had a little bit of a comment made back after that for the Cronulla biased kind of commentary that was going on through the game. But I think it's hard not to get swept up in a history-making moment like that for any club, isn't it?
Oh, well, that's right. When you haven't won, the focus is more on the fairy tale side of it there, and obviously if the fairy tale side is going to get up, it's going to be like that. People are just fickle sometimes. I think they just got to, if it's not suiting their team, obviously people blast them and all that there, but I was happy with it. So
Well, there seemed to be after the Doggies won on Saturday in the AFL.
Yep.
More and more people got onto the yes, Cronulla can have a fairy tale finish as well.
It was a weekend for the fairy tale finishes.
It was.
And for Ben Barber as well, after being knocked off from a couple of teams, from Canterbury up to Brisbane and now to Cronulla, and he's had a standout year after many thought that might have been the end of him.
yeah, well, obviously when Brisbane got rid of him, when Wayne didn't want him there, they thought that was the end of him there because he looked a little bit overweight. But obviously Shane Flanagan got in his ear there, got him fit, got him going. And the last part of this year, he was one of the form fullbacks in the league, and he deserved a premiership ring in the end. So just goes to prove if you are prepared to settle down and do the hard work there after your indiscretions there, that good things can come.
Well, I hope Brisbane's Roberts takes a good look at how Barber's reconstructed himself off the field and the rewards he's reaped on the field now. Well, up next, we're going to be recapping the IRL and the QRL Grand Final here on After the 80. Welcome back to the grand final edition of After the 80, and it's been a big second season of the program with the IRL Grand Final between the Goodna Eagles and Brothers Ipswich live streamed over Phoenix Media Hub. We had over 3,000 viewers on the day, and the entire After the 80 crew did a fantastic job covering the event. Bomber, it was a great grand final with Goodna taking home the biscuit, and it was a great spectacle to watch as well.
Yeah, no, it was a good game. It was between the top two teams there. Brothers, a professional team. Goodna renowned for the non-disciplined and not being fit enough there, but obviously this year Laurie had got them a lot fitter.
Fit and firing.
And their discipline through the whole season, not just the final series, through the whole season was exemplary, and they produced it on grand final day. They fell behind, and normally a good in the team, once they fall behind, that's normally the end of them, but they just kept coming on grand final day, and they deserved the Paul Pasali trophy.
It was good to have the in the commentary box. We had the other Bomber and Ben Dobbin as well taking the reins, and they seemed to really enjoy their first IRL game of the year as well. Yeah,
well, obviously the live stream was the first time that's ever been done, and congratulations to all the students that got it there and produced fantastic episode. Obviously, we had two professional hosts on the sideline, up in the box, and you on the sideline did a fantastic job yourself. So everyone was very happy with the production.
it's a great piece of history to be able to relive as well as a Goodna fan or as a brother fan as well. It was a fantastic performance from both teams, and great to be able to have that, to be able to relive all the action.
Yeah, no, I've still got to see it in its entirety. But,
well, now you can.
What I've seen is brilliant. But what I really would like to do is thank all the crew here from the University of Southern Queensland, because the conditions that they worked under on grand final day were horrendous. Nobody went home dry that day. Nobody went home dry, and they should really be congratulated for the effort they put in.
Well, as we see the final match-winning try here, and it was from the player of the final as well, who we had on the show discussing the grand final win after the game. And as you can see, the wet conditions were a bit of a trial for everyone who was covering it, myself included, as you see, missing a try in the background.
Yeah, well, obviously that was Maxi's try at the end there, just to put it beyond doubt. So. So that's it. It was good news here in the IRL, so congratulations to them.
Well, now to the QRL Grand Final last weekend between the Burleigh Bears and the Redcliffe Dolphins. Burleigh surely played a bit better in the QRL final than they did on the weekend's state championship. Byron, what did you make of the Grand Final between the Bears and the Dolphins?
It was exactly as I thought it would be. The Burleigh Bears dominated it. They took grasp of that game. Redcliffe did come back, but the Bears were just too strong. And when you look at it, you've got to ask, was that the same team that went down to Sydney?
That's it. Well, Bomber, it was a bit of a different story than when the Jets finished up here with a grand final win last year, only to go down and take out the state championship over the Newcastle Knights. But it was a great performance from the Burleigh Bears on grand final day, and obviously after a whole season preparing for it, that was the one they really did want to win. Yeah,
well, obviously the interest up here is what they wanted to win. They began the season pretty good there. They always held around second and third position there, and Redcliffe, they were the two best teams all year. But grand final day, Burleigh just seemed to peak a couple of weeks out. They were getting the momentum going, and on grand final day, led around by the two players that are going to the NRL next year, and Cameron Cullen and Jamal Fogarty. On grand final day, they just proved, and here's Cameron Cullen probably scoring the winning try there for the Bears on grand final day.
He was the little man who really stepped up for the Bears on grand final day, and as you said, Jamal Fogarty, a great kicking display on the day as well. It was an incredibly tight competition all year in the QRL. Unfortunately for the Jets, it was a little bit too tight for them, but it was great to see all the results still coming down to the line in the final round.
Yeah, well, heading into the last couple of rounds there was a lot of teams fighting for third position, fourth position. The Jets were still fighting for sixth position. There was about 5 teams fighting for 2 positions. So it's good to see that a competition can come down to the last couple of weeks where teams aren't streaking away and making it like a 1-horse or a 2-horse affair. So.
And it was a great win for a former Ipswich man in Jimmy Lenihan, with coaching the Burleigh Bears as well to that grand final win. So there is a little bit of an Ipswich connection in the QRL.
Yeah. Well, Jimmy come through the junior grades at Ipswich there. So congratulations to Jimmy and the Burleigh Bears. And we'll all be looking forward to next year when it all kicks off again. I know the Ipswich Jets are holding their under-18s trials this weekend on Friday night, I believe. So we'll be looking forward to seeing the next batch of Ipswich Jets coming through for next year's competition. Well, that's all we have time for in this show for the year. It's been an amazing year, and there's quite a few people we have to thank for the 20+ episodes that we've pumped out throughout the year. You can still we've got the representatives from the Ipswich Jets, obviously with Jason Kubert, Nicole McPhee, former CEO Wayne Wendt, now current CEO Jason Kubert as well. Stats expert Michael Nunn, the BRL captain and the halfback from the Jets, Chris Ash. He came on a couple of times, so we'll thank him.
Yep, we had Lockie Rowe on here as well after his stint with Queensland. So. And obviously the IRL, thank you very much for your support throughout the year as well, from both yourselves and all the representatives from the IRL clubs that we've had throughout the year, the coaches club representatives and players that we've managed to pull onto the show to film with us. Also have to thank the hard-working crew behind the scenes as well. They rarely step in front of the camera, but it's been a great effort from the whole team here.
Oh, well, obviously we're the ones in front of the camera, but the ones that organise the show, we've probably got to give a big thanks to Bruce and Ashley for coordinating the show, putting it together, to our producer Dan. He does a fantastic job there, annoys us sometimes with emails and all that, but that's how a show works. And then to all the camera people, switch out the back. Everybody did a fantastic job, and they all worked as one team and produced this great show.
Well, it was first grade quality, and that's what we hope we were producing all year. So thanks for sticking with us as well. For the fans that have been following along, you can still follow us over the break on facebook.com/after-the-80TV for all of the updates during the off season. From all of us here on After the 80, thank you for your support, and we look forward to bringing you another season next year. Good night.